Okay, Norman Endeavor Trikes here. I'm going to do a little bit of a video here on how to adjust the balance of the bike as far as it being plumb. So it doesn't lean to one side or the other. If it happens to lean, lean over to the right a little bit. When you're going down the road, it's typically going to lean to the right anyway because you have crown in the road. But you don't want, excessive. And if you're on a level surface, the bike should sit straight up and down. If it's off to one side or the other, then you have to do a suspension adjustment. And typically it would be a very minor thing. One thing it does do, because this is a double wishbone system, when the bike leans back and forth, the wheels lean with it. And so if, say for instance, it leans to the right, this wheel will end up with more positive caster than it should, or camber I should say. The other one will have either neutral or negative. I normally set the camber at 1 degree positive. So like this one would have 2 degrees positive, the other side would have 0. So that you kind of want to eliminate also. Even though that really won't affect the handling to any noticeable degree, it may affect some of the wear pattern on the tire. So to do this, I normally take my little level and I stick it on the bumper, or on, in this case I'm going to put it here on the anti-sway tube. And I'm right on the money on this one. It's perfect. And if I measure my lift here, that's right on the money too. So this one is actually perfect. This is where I usually leave them. Once in a while I have to adjust them though. And if I have to raise one side, say for instance it's off, maybe the bubble, instead of being directly in the center, is bumping the line, which means I have to lift this side. This is a 4-step adjustment shock. I might bump it up two bumps. So I put my jack underneath the hinge point on the lower A-arm, so the wheel is pretty much loose. I get my little spanner here, which I welded onto it, and this one I have to adjust from the back. So to adjust it up, and you can tell if you're going the right way because it's lifting, so you just give it a bump up. To go the other way, you give it a bump down. And you can go 4 bumps. If you go too far, it'll drop right to the bottom, which is okay because then you just count from there. Typically, these will be set probably midway. Sometimes they're all the way up. In that case, you'd have to drop the other shock 1 or 2 clicks to correct a real minor difference. Now, if the difference is more than what I would call minor, and you have to go more than that, then you end up adjusting these anti-sway struts in order to manipulate the way the A-arms sit. So for instance, if I wanted to drop this side down, I would lengthen this one. It's kind of the opposite you might think. To drop this one down, you lengthen this side or you shorten the other side. And what that does, by lengthening this, it actually pushes up an A-arm. It pulls down on the body. It forces this side of the body down, which will twist the bike over this way. But the way to adjust this is actually pretty simple. You just loosen the acorn nut. This is the decorative nut. Some of them have that, some don't. And you loosen the lock nut to the point. And here I'm going to, again, get this down to where the strut's kind of in the neutral position. And you can turn it by hand. So if I shorten that one, or you can lengthen it. And if you just look at the way it functions, by lengthening this, I'm pushing down on this arm, which is basically pushing the body down, and it's pushing up on the A-arm. So those two things together will cause this side to dip by lengthening this. So if you want to lower it, you lengthen the arm. If you want to raise it, you'd shorten this or lengthen the other side, because this bar goes from side to side. And a lot of times if you have to adjust quite a bit, like say you want to change a 1/4 inch, which is actually kind of a lot, you end up doing both things. You end up changing the shock length and also making this adjustment. Now the thing with the shocks is, by increasing the tension on here, you don't change the ride quality. It doesn't change anything about the ride. All it does is it changes the height. It changes the ride height. A lot of people think that if you adjust this up, it makes the ride firmer, and if you adjust it down, you get a softer ride. That's absolutely wrong. The ride never changes. It's just the height changes. So normally on bikes like the Goldwings, I'll run the rear shock all the way up to 25 just to get more elevation. And the shocks, I might run those on the second click. Maybe I might run them all the way up to the fourth click, depending on how high I want to get the bike off the ground. But you know, the key is I always try to get this balance correct, which 99 times out of 100 is going to be fine. Once in a while, one will maybe settle down or something or get a little out of kilter. Now, the shocks on the back of this bike, which is a Harley, are an air override. Now, in that particular case, adding air does make it ride different because you're adding spring. You're adding more spring to the existing spring. Where here, you're not adding any spring, you're just changing the mount point, which is just going to lift the bike up. So air shocks are a little bit different. You do change the ride by changing the air pressure, but on static shocks like this, it has no effect on the ride whatsoever. But anyway, it's kind of clear as mud, I suppose, but if you study the geometry in that, it's pretty easy to figure out. And if you do it wrong, it just makes things worse. So then you know you do it the opposite way to get it correct. But typically, you know, that's part of the adjustment phase here for me, is to go ahead and try to get that squared away. I check the caster, which is probably one of the most important things, is to get the caster equal from side to side, the camber, and then the very last thing I ever do is set the toe, because toe just affects tire wear. It doesn't really affect drivability. So anyway, hopefully that'll kind of clear up matters a little bit. Nothing else, you end up with a really nice jack, which is handy for cleaning. You can, usually I'll stick it in here underneath the shock, get the wheel off the ground, and then you can spin the wheel while you got a rag in here. You can wash the rims out real good. It's just handy. These things are just handy. So anyway, hopefully that'll give you something to work on, all right?